You're listening to Unbound presents Until They Wake. 7 episodes, 6 lives, 1 impossible convergence. Beth Curry's been chasing these stories for a while now, and she's finally ready to share what she found. It's not what you'd expect. Nothing about this is. Pull up a chair. This one's different.
Hey, welcome back. This is Beth Curry, and you're listening to Until They Wake. So far, I've told you about James Cooper, a swim instructor who dove into a cold water at Lake Harmon, Ruth Mitchell, who survived a car crash on a Portland highway when she was about 7 months pregnant. Today's story takes place in New York City, September 2001. I know what you're thinking. And no, this isn't a story about the towers. Not directly, but what happened on September 11th created the atmosphere for what happened 4 days later. It shaped the city Maria Gonzalez was moving through. It shaped the fear she was already carrying. This is about a woman named Maria, 26 years old. She was living in Brooklyn, working as a paralegal in Manhattan. And on September 15th, 2001, someone came after her on a dark street 3 blocks from her apartment. Maria learned to fight back in the girls' bathroom at Lincoln Middle School. 6th grade, a group of girls cornered her after 3rd period and wanted her lunch money. She gave them her fist instead. She tells me she got suspended for 3 days. Her mom was mad, not at Maria for fighting, but at the school for punishing the victim. She told Maria she'd done the right thing, that she should never let anyone make her small. And Maria carried that with her into high school, into college, into her job at this small Manhattan law firm that specialized in family law, like divorces and custody battles, domestic violence cases, that kind of stuff. It wasn't glamorous. Most days she was drowning in paperwork and filing motions and scheduling depositions and sitting in client meetings, taking notes. But when they helped a woman get a restraining order or secured custody for a parent who'd been fighting for years, it felt like work that actually mattered. Her boss, Catherine, was the kind of lawyer that Maria wanted to be someday. She was sharp and she was uncompromising and fierce in court, but genuinely compassionate with clients. She'd taken a chance on Maria straight out of community college. She didn't have a bachelor's degree, no credentials, just good grades and what Catherine called the right instincts. She told Maria during that interview that knowing when someone is lying is worth more than any degree at all. Maria had been with the firm 3 years by September of 2001. Catherine had been encouraging her to take the LSAT, apply to the law school. But law school cost money Maria didn't have, of course. Her mom was getting older and her 2 younger brothers were in college and drowning in debt, and her grandmother's health was declining. So someone needed to be the stable one, and that someone was Maria. September in New York is beautiful. If you've ever been, the oppressive summer heat kind of finally breaks and the light changes and it goes softer. Maria loved the city in September, the way that it felt like anything good could happen, possibilities and things like that. And she was working late on September 10th. Catherine needed a brief filed by morning, and Maria was the only one who knew the case well enough to help. They had ordered Chinese food and worked until almost midnight. By the time Maria left, the subway platform was nearly empty. She texted her roommate that she was on her way home. The next morning, she woke up to a city that would never be the same. I don't need to tell you what happened September 11th. Everyone knows. What I need to tell you about, though, is what came after. The shock and the grief and the fear that kind of settled over New York. Maria went to 2 memorials that week. People from her building who worked downtown. A cousin of her mother's, the father of a girl she went to high school with. Each service kind of blurred into the next one. A lot of unanswerable questions. Catherine gave everyone at the firm the week off, but Maria couldn't stay in her apartment. She couldn't watch the news on loop. She couldn't sit still with the weight of it all, so she would go to the office anyway. She'd work on paperwork and organize case files, anything that felt productive and anything that felt normal. September 15th, 2001, 4 days after the towers fell, Maria left the office late again. It was past 10. The streets were quieter than they should have been. The city felt different and more afraid. More suspicious. People looked at each other differently. They held their bags closer and they walked faster. Maria had grown up in New York. She knew how to move through it. Keys between her fingers, head up, confidence dry, don't look like a victim. She'd taken self-defense classes. She ran every morning. She refused to be afraid of this city. But on this particular day, none of that mattered. She was 3 blocks from her apartment when she felt someone behind her. Little too close, moving when she moved, stopping when she stopped. She turned around. There's a man there, maybe 30. Average height, dark jacket, hands in his pockets. He asked if she had the time Red flag. Nobody asks for the time anymore. She said no and kept walking. He followed. She walked faster, so did he. 2 blocks from home, 1 block. She pulled her purse a little bit closer, and that's when he grabbed her. Hand clamped over her mouth, something cold and sharp pressed against her ribs. He told her not to scream, just give him the bag. Maria should have given him the bag. That's what they tell you in self-defense class. Give them what they want. Your life is worth more than your wallet. But she was tired. She was tired of the grief and the fear and the feeling that the world was falling apart around her. She was tired of people taking things that didn't belong to them. She bit down on his hand hard, and he jerked back. She spun around and tried to run, and that's when she felt it. The knife, sharp and cold and sudden, sliding between her ribs. Not pain at first, just pressure, and then heat, spreading across her side. She looked down and saw blood soaking through her shirt. The man ran. She heard his footsteps going fast and then fading. Someone shouted. Someone else was calling 911. Maria tried to stay standing. She tried to apply pressure the way she'd been taught, but her legs weren't cooperating. The sidewalk came up to meet her, hard concrete against her cheek. The last thing she remembered before the ambulance was the sound of sirens. They'd been constant since September 11th, background noise to everything, but these ones were for her. Maria woke up in the hospital. She had surgery, they told her. They'd stopped the bleeding, they repaired the damage. The knife had missed everything vital by millimeters. Her mom was there, rosary in her hands. Her brothers, her grandmother, who insisted on coming despite not feeling well. Catherine was there and brought flowers. The police came and took her statement. She described the man, average and forgettable, the kind of face that disappears in a crowd. They said they'd look for him. Their voices said they wouldn't find him. Just another crime in a city full of them. Maria stayed 4 days, and her body healed faster than expected. The nurses kept remarking on it. She'd have a scar, they said, a raised line along her left side, about 3 inches, but she'd be fine. The months after the attack were where Maria's story gets interesting to me, because she went back to work in October. Catherine wanted her to take more time off, but Maria couldn't. She couldn't stay home. She couldn't sit with her thoughts, and she couldn't let the fear win. But she was careful now. She took cabs after dark, and she never walked alone, and she was constantly checking over her shoulder. The man who stabbed her was never caught. The case went cold. She tried not to think about him out there somewhere. Her mom wanted her to move home. Her brothers offered to walk her to and from the subway. Even Grandma, who usually told her to be strong, looked at her with worried eyes. Maria kept telling everyone she was fine, and she was, mostly. She threw herself into work. She took on more cases and longer hours. She did apply to law schools in 2002, and she got into 3. The one she chose was affordable and close and specialized in public interest law, and she started classes in 2003. She worked at the firm part-time. She studied full-time. She ran on 4 hours of sleep and determination. Catherine mentored her through all of it. She helped her outline papers and quizzed her on case law. She wrote recommendations for internships. She told her she was going to be a better lawyer than she had ever been. Maria graduated several years later. She passed the bar on her first try. She got a job at a nonprofit providing legal services to domestic violence survivors. The work was hard. It was heartbreaking sometimes, she said. Women with stories worse than hers, with scars that went deeper than skin, but helping them with getting restraining orders and negotiating custody agreements and all that, standing beside them in court, it made her survival count for something to her. She started teaching self-defense classes as well in 2008, just basic techniques, situational awareness, how to trust your instincts. 20 women per class, she says, all ages, all backgrounds, all trying to feel safer. In a world it didn't always want them to be, right? The scar faded over the years, less pink, more silver. Sometimes she forgot it was there. Sometimes she'd catch sight of it in her mirror and remember everything. But she was still here. She was still fighting and still refusing to be small. In early September 2015, the community center asked Maria to give a talk. It was a self-defense workshop for women, part of a larger safety awareness event. And Maria said yes, because that's what she did. She showed up, she fought back, she helped others do the same. The event was scheduled for, get this, September 15th, exactly 14 years after the stabbing. Maria didn't notice the date until after she'd already agreed, and by then it felt like something, like a chance to take that date back and turn it into something other than an anniversary of the worst night of her life. The workshop was held at a hospital with a community education center that hosted public health events. Maria drove there that morning. She prepared her notes. She rehearsed what she'd say about fighting back and survival and refusing to let fear win. 30 women showed up. The workshop went well. Questions, conversations, women practicing techniques with each other, kind of nodding along. Maria told them her story. Not all of it, but just enough, about the attack and the recovery and the choice to not let it define her. She told them that they were stronger than they thought. She says she reassured them that they had the right to take up space in this world and that they should never let anyone make them feel small. And they applauded. Several women stayed afterwards to talk, to share their own stories. Maria stayed later than she'd planned. By the time she packed up and said goodbye to the coordinator, it was almost 8 in the evening. The hospital went quiet, most visitors long gone. She headed towards the exit and took a wrong turn somewhere. The hospital was a maze, corridors that all looked the same, wings that connected in ways that didn't make sense. She found herself in a section that seemed older, less maintained. She told herself she'd just find a stairwell and work her way back to the main entrance. She pushed through a door, the end of a corridor, and she found a stairwell. She followed that one down, and at the bottom, she pushed through another door and stepped right out into a parking lot. She found her car and drove home. So that's Maria Gonzalez, a knife on a Brooklyn sidewalk and the worst week New York City ever had. 14 years of a life she built in the aftermath, fighting for other people the same way she once fought for herself. Tomorrow, I'm going to go back further to 1976 to a construction site, a man named Danny Walsh who built things with his hands and believed that the work you do with your body is the work that lasts. And in a few days, I'm going to explain how all of these stories tie together, because they do. See you next time.
That's it for this episode of Until They Wake. Unbound is free to listen to. If you'd like to support production costs or get in touch with Beth, check the show notes for details. See you next time.